3, 2, 1.
All right, we'll call to order the City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission Joint Plan Development Workshop agenda for Monday, December the 16th, 2024 at 5 o'clock p.m. With that, Madam Secretary, we will have roll call and certification of quorum. Instead of roll call, we will certify we have a quorum present as all members of the City Council are present with the exception of Member Patel. I have not heard from him, so I'm assuming he'll be here shortly. With that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Your Honor. Certifying that all 7 planning and zoning commissioners are here.
Good deal. Good deal. All right. With that, citizens' comments, was there none turned in? All right. With that, we'll turn to the purpose of workshop number 1. Martin presenting.
Yes, Mayor.
All right.
So for this first workshop, this is a request by Katie Harris, LJA Engineering, applicant on behalf of CCAC Reserve Holdings, LLC, owner for a plan development workshop as required by the Unified Development Code regarding a proposed amendment to the Shadow Creek Ranch plan development to allow for approximately 14.34 acres of land to be zoned for multifamily zoning to accommodate a multifamily residential development consisting of 414 units. This property is generally at the southeast corner of Business Center Drive and Medical Center Drive here in Pearland. So getting into this request, as discussed, Shadow Creek is one of our primary plan developments within the city. As such, it has a variety of categories in it and allows for certain development to take place in certain areas. As such, they are looking to recategorize some commercial property into the multifamily district, and that would allow them to build 8 multifamily apartment-style buildings with 350 units and approximately 64 townhome units. This would all generate 897 parking spaces. This would be split in between surface parked, private garages, and then a 2-story parking garage that's kind of in the middle of the development. You'll see the site plan here in just a minute. The applicant is also proposing certain amenities. This includes a clubhouse, pool, playground, and a dog park. And as I mentioned before, part of establishing or making major deviations within a plan development is to go through this workshop and to get comments from both P&Z and City Council. So here is kind of the aerial and zoning of the area. You can see all of it is within Shadow Creek, and then there's a variety of commercial areas. Buildings of note are the furniture store that fronts out onto 288, and then you've got a rehabilitation center that fronts out onto Business Center Drive. Taking a look at the future land use plan, this area is called out as business park place type that intends to have major employment bases and then service professional offices with limited retail and restaurants. So here's the first look at the site plan. You can see it's generally split, going north-south, north being to the right of the screen, south being to the left. The townhomes are in this grouping, and then the apartments are on this side of the development. Here is what they're proposing for landscaping and briefly highlighting some of the amenities. And then you can see further here where they've got the leasing building, the 2-story parking garage, and then those variety of buildings that are all 4 stories for the apartments. And then the 3-story townhome buildings, again, are all on this side of the property. So going into a little bit of history and how Shadow Creek gets developed. The original Shadow Creek land plan laid out certain areas and certain percentages of land in order for there to be a harmonious development amongst all of the all of Shadow Creek. Call out your attention. Originally, it was scheduled for 192.8 acres of multifamily residential. You'll see that 192.8 echoed here at the top, and I'll walk you through this table and this slide. Apologies, it's a little busy, but this is dense and good information that is necessary for y'all to understand Shadow Creek. So Shadow Creek allows for both a total number of dwelling units and a maximum area of land to be dedicated for certain uses. So within Shadow Creek, again, you get that 192.8 acres for multifamily, but Shadow Creek also allowed for a 15% increase in that original amount of acreage. That gets you to the 221.72 acres of land that you see in the second row here. So far in the life of Shadow Creek, they have altogether developed 221.7176 acres of multifamily. That leaves a remainder of 0.0024 acres. That's roughly 104.54 square feet. Again, the proposal is for 14.34 acres. That leaves a balance left to have of 14.3376 acres. Now, just a moment ago, I mentioned that it had both a cap on acreage and on dwelling units. So the number of acres laid out a certain density. That density gave for 3,733 dwelling units to be built. Again, going back to the 15% increase, that ends up with a 4,292 dwelling unit count, of which they have developed, they in general, Shadow Creek as a whole, not necessarily LJA as the developer, has developed 3,851 of those units. That leaves 441 dwelling units of remaining capacity left, but it is nigh impossible to put 441 dwelling units on 104 square feet. Again, the proposal is to have 414 dwelling units, so they are coming in, the proposal is coming in just shy of that cap with 27 dwelling units remaining should this allowance be granted. One final note on this slide, there is an overall cap for total number of dwelling units. That is both for single family residential and for multifamily. That is to exceed 12,000, or not to exceed 12,723 units. And with this original cap in place for the 4,292 under multifamily and still having remaining units left, we're well within our overall balance to not require an increase in this 12,723 number. So other points of discussion, should this property become part of the multifamily, here are the site development requirements that will need to be met. And then the applicant did not provide any conceptual renderings. All they provided was that site plan that was in the applicant's packet. However, Shadow Creek Ranch has an architectural review committee, so anything that gets planned and approved will ultimately need to be approved through that architectural review committee as well. So I leave on the screen two primary questions that we'd like discussion on from both the P&Z and council. Should this application move forward with design and proposing amendments to Shadow Creek Ranch? That's probably the first question. And then if there is a consensus to move forward with allowing for additional multifamily units, then we'll most likely have a conversation about what notification looks like. As it stands, there are about 7,500 single-family residences, and then about another 1,000 properties that are within the notification area. That puts at 8,500 letters that need to go out for this, and at $1 a letter, that lends to an $8,500 mail out charge. The applicant is requesting potentially for a alternative compliance to be met. We've done alternative compliance a couple times throughout the years on rather large plan developments. And what they are proposing to have is to notify everyone within 1,000 feet of the location. Again, state law requirements is a 200-foot buffer, and then to notice all 4 of the homeowners associations as well. If there's consensus on that item to allow for the alternative compliance on mail out, then staff will bring a future agenda item to a regular city council meeting for y'all's vote on that. With that, Mayor, I will pass back to y'all for discussion.
All right, with that, does the applicant have a presentation? All right. Welcome tonight. Glad to see you here. And anyone, Josh, do you have a, not sure who's going to run it? Okay. And then anyone who goes to the podium to speak, just make sure you tie your comments to your name. So make sure you introduce yourself, name and address, and for the record.
Good evening, council members and Planning and Zoning Commission members. My name is Katie Harris with LJA Engineering, and I am the applicant for this project. I'm not going to do the majority of the speaking. Graco Partners will share the vision of the project. We have large boards that will have facade imagery so that you can get a better idea for what's being proposed. If you can't see these, I'm happy to ban a white for you, so just let me know. We also have the easels, and we are bringing up images for screens. So yeah, they're going to load it.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Gray. I am the CEO and owner of Graco Partners. We're based here in the greater Houston area and have been developing projects like this for almost 40 years in major cities around the country, including many in the Houston area. We've got about 6 or 7 items that I'd like to share with you tonight that hopefully give you a better image of the project and may spur some questions that you might have. So let's start, first of all, with the site plan. Do you have this on the thumb drive? Our site plan? This site plan on the thumb drive? Even you might want to assist with the sections.
Yeah, they've got a thumb drive that's got their latest on it, so we'll let Josh get it pulled up, and we'll have it here in just a minute.
We'll do the site sections and the rendering.
There we go.
So, as it was pointed out, the site is give or take 14 acres, and it's divided into 2 parcels, as you can see. One parcel's about 9.5 acres large, square parcel, and the other a little over 4.5 acres. That's a long, narrow parcel. Our plan is to bring a bit more of an urban project to this site. We think it's appropriate given the various uses in and around the site and the employment. That said, if you will, the panhandle of the site does not offer itself up for higher density product, and we envision a rental townhome type project. altogether 350 units in the higher density portion and 64 units in the lower density or townhome portion. The city recently approved a project as part of a CBL PUD that was a similar higher density project. We studied that project and thought in our site planning there was much room for improvement over the way that project was presented and approved by the council. And that much room for improvement really started with trying to create an edge along the 3 public streets where we pushed the buildings up a bit closer in a more urban concept, and then internalize the parking where as you view the project passing by either pedestrian or vehicle, you're not looking at a sea of parking. And that included a large one-level parking deck, which is represented in light gray. If we could move on to the section that cuts through the site, I think it would better display. So this is a site section cutting through north-south. And as you can see, you've got the buildings and then the amenities and then the parking deck and then more amenities and then the rear buildings. More particularly, if we'll move on to the next section, this gives you an image of how the buildings and the site edge would present itself on the 3 public drives, utilizing the existing trees that have been planted and the existing sidewalk system. Moving on to the next slide, we'll take a look at the image of the building. So this is a representation of the way the perimeter buildings would look and a representation of the existing streetscape. We also, the next slide is a bit repetitive because the city, 2 more. The city did the same math. It's hard to see. Can we blow that up? But this basically tells the same story of the total density allowed under the Shadow Creek PUD. And then it actually lists and enumerates every project that has been developed as a multifamily project in the Shadow Creek PUD with densities ranging on an existing basis from about 13 units to the acre to almost 26 units to the acre, which was the latest project approved, permitted, and constructed. And this combined project is give or take 27 units to the acre. Next slide. I think we got to go back one. This is just a bit more detail on the composition of the overall project, which delineates the proposed unit mix and unit count, and also delineates the gross and net area, 350 traditional multifamily units and 4-story elevator-served buildings and 64 units in townhomes. The townhomes much larger than the flats, if you will. You also see that we've got a very substantial and in excess of code parking provision, in large part because of the internal parking structure that provides adequate parking, and then the fact that each of the townhomes has a 2-car attached garage. Any questions?
Is that all of your presentation at this point?
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll get to questions in just a second. We'll turn it over to the Planning and Zoning Commission to offer up your thoughts and questions and concerns. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Your Honor. Why don't we start at the end?
Excuse me, Mayor, did you want to ask for public input before we went on to the commission and city council?
This is not a,
Oh, it's a workshop. My apologies. My apologies.
that's later.
Right? Ms. Ord, no?
Okay, my only concern is how much commercial space. I don't feel like I know enough about how much commercial space we have left over there in Shadow Creek and what was slated for it. I don't have a problem with the product. I think it looks good. I think my only concern is removing that use, that particular area for commercial. And that's pretty much it.
With that said, I'm going to turn you over to Alan Croswell, who has owned and developed most of this area in the commercial business district over the last decade, and he can share with you his past, current, and present experiences with the demand for commercial uses.
Good evening. To answer your question, a little background, I purchased most of the commercial reserves in Shadow Creek Ranch, and I've been down here for 22 years and recognize many of you guys. And so this project right here, we had all of the commercial frontage and reserves along 288 and built most of this infrastructure. So we've owned this piece it's been finished for 20 years. And sold off a piece immediately to the south to a banking financial institution in Clear Lake on the corner, to which they have not developed yet. So that's still available. They put it back on the market. And there is a office building immediately to the south of this project, right next to the rehab center that's there currently, and it's vacant, but they have had a permit in place for probably 5 years to build a medical office building, which has not happened. So in conjunction to the tracks we still have left, we have additional frontage piece next to the Rooms to Go that we own on the frontage, which we intend to develop as some form of retail business, could be medical, but at current, we have really no demand for it.
Did y'all bother to reach out to the neighborhoods around there at all, talk to any of the HOAs?
We have not done any notification yet about the proposed apartments.
Yes, sir.
No, sir. We have not done any of the notifications yet because got to kind of get through this wave here first. And if it's something that we can move forward with, then there's a notification process.
I understand that, but the problem that we normally get on that is especially with apartments, and especially over in the Shadow Creek area, they come out in droves to be against the apartments. And that right there is probably going to be a very big driver in whether it goes any further. I'd hate to see y'all go in there and go to a big expense of getting everything together and stuff, and then 40, 50 people show up in here, because I guarantee you if they do, it's not going anywhere. So, all right, thank you.
I just remember when staff brought forward the last multifamily project, and at that point, everybody in Shadow Creek already thought the numbers had been hit and no more apartments would be coming. And kind of the unhappiness with the neighborhoods and the community when staff went through the numbers with them and showed them that, yes, it looked like one more apartment complex could come in and was allowed, which I believe was also Mr. Croswell's project. So I would say it's got a PD. It had a built-in 15% variance, which has been met. We just went through, as a community, a comprehensive plan just within the last year that said this should be, I believe, business. And so I feel like coming in the same year and changing it, as well as overriding the PD, as well as trying to put something in there that the community, I think, has been consistently against even before the last couple have been built, would be troublesome. I appreciate Mr. Croswell's comments to the market, but he wouldn't be here. He's not going to show up and tell us that there's something better out there, right? I mean, he wants to sell the property. So I would say that right now, I don't think one more of what's the same as every other apartment out there is beneficial to Shadow Creek. And I'm for the alternative notification because I know they'll get on their emails and everybody will get a copy.
They already know.
We're already getting notices, I know.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that, if you might, that this is not one more of the same. This is a much more urban product that is very consistent with what the council approved less than a half a mile away from here back in the spring of 2023. And I think if you compare and contrast the planning and detail and presentation of this project, it's far superior to the CBL project. So we really watched the way this body and the Planning Commission and Council acted on that and took into consideration the design and putting this forward.
We can agree to disagree.
For me, I like the look. I like the look of it from the streetscape. I like the look that it's closer to the street. I think when we approved a project in off of Magnolia and 1128, they were closer to the street. I just like that look conceptually. I appreciate that it's both multifamily, traditional multifamily apartment style, and townhomes. So you've got kind of a mix there, like that. For me, the caps that were mentioned and that are in the Shadow Creek PUD, because it was a PUD, not a PD, it was that long ago. I think those numbers were formulated and agreed to back in 1999. I know they're still in place, but I'd rather see more AV on the ground than I would not. So a few extra units doesn't bother me. My personal opinion. To me, also, this is a transition parcel. Anytime I go around the freeways or on the freeways, and whether it be Houston, whether it be somewhere else, large metropolitans, small metropolitans, I see commercial lining the freeways once they've been developed, and behind that is typically where you find your multifamily, and then beyond that is where you have your residences. And I think that makes sense in this parcel. And I know this has been mentioned here by the applicant or his representatives that, a different product. I was thinking, and I know this parcel, I'm familiar with it. It's right behind Rooms to Go. I get where the parcel is, and I also understand that, the uses that could go there. But bringing in another office since COVID is no longer existent, or it's rare. If you want an office, you can pick one up on an auction block. Commercial, it's a back piece. It doesn't have the visibility, so you're not going to get that commercial use there. Industrial, that doesn't fit in our 288 corridor, so that's dead. Senior care, that's built out. Medical, they also are wanting visibility. I don't know that you're going to get a medical use behind a commercial like that. So, especially when you have three others up and down the freeway. So for me, it's a good use for the parcel. And I think the main question is going to be political will at this point. And of course, what y'all think. Thank you. Anybody else have any wrap-ups?
Original PD for Shadow Creek was put in place around 2000. The original, 99 or 2000, somewhere in there. Okay. I'll turn it over to the council for questions, comments, concerns. Anybody want to lead off? Mr. Koza?
I'll give it a shot, Mayor. Since about noon today, since Mr. Fortes said political will, we've gotten 15 emails against it. And that's without notification. So my stance on it would be I would not be in favor of it. So that's what I've got to say.
Chevrolet.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. I happen to agree with Councilmember Koza. We have received several emails from the residents in that community, so I am currently not in favor.
Mayor, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I also will have to be against it. To repeat them, we've received several against it, not one for it. So I would be against it also.
Any other questions, comments? Mr. Patel? Welcome tonight, by the way.
Sorry, my apologies, Mayor,
All good.
for my
All good.
tardiness today.
All good.
I do appreciate you guys coming and making a presentation. Just so you know, I live on that side of town, and I did fight against the CBL Town Center apartment development behind there. And I think one of my biggest concern is the amount of traffic that's already on Business Center Drive. And I believe in your presentation, you said you were going to add 850 plus parking space. That tells me you'll probably need all of them. And trying to get that traffic in and out of that area is going to be a little bit more congested. And as my colleagues on this panel said, we've already received 15. So if you guys really do want to move forward, I am with Mr. Eisenberg to say, I'm not going to give you a waiver of only sending 1,000. If you really want to move forward and get people to buy into it, go send 8,000. If you really feel that this project is something our community needs, then go get the support from them. But I don't think we have the willpower on this council, at least I don't, to push this through.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, within a few hours, the citizen input we've gotten on multifamily, yeah, I've seen it swing back and forth since I've been on council, and I say that Shadow Creek's been fairly consistent since I can remember. And I know we've run through and seen these metrics time and time again with the 15% buffer, and so yeah, I don't know if there's any appetite for this.
Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I'm just going to speak. I think I'm consistent with all the other opinions up here. The difference with CBL is it was more of an entertainment district. That was a hard yes and a hard pass. I think you guys knew walking in here there'd be a tough road. Great presentation. We appreciate everything you've done and the money you've spent and the development you've done in Pearland and all for landowner rights. But I just don't think this is the right fit here. So thanks for coming.
Ron, you got anything? Anything to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will say I like the product. I like the thoughtfulness you guys put in there. I like the parking garage hidden by the units, where it's not just this monstrosity right on the edge of it. I do like that. To members of Planning and Zoning's point, this area, going back to 99 when they developed it, they contemplated how much they wanted to see in that area for multifamily, and even gave a buffer for it. And we've met what they wanted, and we've met the buffer. And so,
Excuse me, you have not met the buffer. This is within the 15% tolerance. If that got lost in...
no, we've met the buffer on acreage. We haven't met the buffer on units. You're correct on that.
Correct.
So ultimately, I think it's a very hard sell to the residents that live in that community that to take up more acreage over there, even though you can say, yes, it's within the unit number. Well, it's more land that was designed for something else that they're asking for. I think there's a couple of things worth pointing out in the series of emails that we got today that I think it's good for the citizens to understand that developers have a right to bring a planned development idea before council. It's not council asking for apartment complexes. Right. It's anyone has a right to bring something before council, and we take the time to hear it. But at the same time, I don't live on that side of town. I live on this side of town. I want to, but we represent the entire community, and the residents that live over there understand that this was not contemplated to be multifamily. It was contemplated to be some other type of business park, and that's what they're asking us to stick to. So I would stick with what the rest of my members of council have said and stick with the plan development the way it was put together.
Back to planning and zoning. Any follow-up comments? Because I think we're getting consensus here across the council. I think certainly we're getting direction. And I think I agree with John. I thought we had met the units in the 15%. I had been told that in the past, and now all of a sudden it's changed. So I'm a little perplexed on that side of it. But I mean, if we haven't, we haven't. But
If you go back through the slide, please, you can blow that up. This is what the professional planning staff provided to us. We did our own homework, but if you look at go to the very top. This is the top section is what was provided by Laura Development Services in the exact same spreadsheet, which is that there's 441 units remaining.
And Mayor, I'll just tell you that I believe when staff looked at after the last development came on and we knew the acreage was gone, they knew it's hard not to talk like I'm staff sometimes.
No, you give great context, John. Great context.
We knew that there were apartments left, and the idea was that there was the potential for existing developments to expand if they had the room, or if they could rebuild or add something, but there wouldn't be any fresh developments. There wouldn't be any new ground-up developments. And so the land was gone, but there was units allowed. There just wasn't a place to put the units because of the way the development had played out.
Maybe this is something outside of this we can get some real good clarity on, so we can maybe memorialize it. That way we've got a little better understanding moving forward. If there is room, then we all need to be in agreement on where that's coming from, or if there's not, we're all in agreement that there's no more room, moving forward. This is a tough parcel. It's not directly on the freeway. There's apartments between where this would go in and where single-family residential, would start. And I want to echo what Member Byram said, is just because something is on this agenda doesn't mean that we've gone out and solicited, that use or solicited, anything of that nature. But each and every parcel of land has its, quote, day in court, whether it's here and it starts in a workshop or ends up in a public hearing somewhere. So we don't go solicit. We wait for people to come to us, and they have the right to make their case. And so anybody that's watching this, that's what's happened here. At the same time, lots of comments about traffic, lots of comments about, increase in traffic that this would bring. I will say, for those in Shadow Creek, if you're wanting business development there versus the apartment side of things, you're going to have even more traffic than what the apartments would bring. So just be aware that if an office building went in, or some type of commercial development came in this particular area, you would end up with more traffic than you would with the multifamily. And by right, they could go, and do those kind of things. So just be aware, commercial brings more traffic than any residential use does on par. So, but I think we've gotten direction and consensus. I didn't hear a lot of let's go do this from P&Z, and I certainly didn't hear anybody on council saying that.
I do have one question.
Sure.
Could I get some elaboration on what the comments were from the citizens in case we do decide to move forward? It would be nice to know if it's traffic, drainage, use.
We can have staff forward. It's all public record, so we can have staff forward the emails. We have a council contact form. That's where they've come in, so they'd be real easy to just send them. Some ranging from traffic and those types of things, to crime, to additional impact on schools, the traditional thing that you would see if you want to, hierarchy of what's been said. So
That's what I expected, but just in case there was some random outlier.
yeah, and of course nobody had a product to look at, so there's no comments towards that. And I will echo, I think the product. I mean, we've been wanting, if we're going to do any multifamily, we want more of an urban style, not garden variety apartment, but certainly a more urban style. You guys were shooting for that as well. So, and I appreciate that.
Hey, Mayor, just one ad. We've been here a long time. I don't know, since the beginning. We've added probably $3 billion or so to the tax rolls here. This is our last piece that we have, and it's your neighboring businesses there are medical primarily, right? And you have Sam's and some of the ancillary retail that brings, but your HCA, your Memorial Hermann, those professionals are looking for this type of development and this type we're looking for something that will spring the remainder of this portion of the property. You guys have an economic development group. They do a good job of doing other things. They've never brought me anything, but if there's a better use, I struggle with what it is, but we think this instigates the rest of this tract to be developed because of its higher end, denser product that the market wants. Pearland's turned into a little more than the bedroom community was when I got here 24 years ago. And then now this is it's an urban product for sure.
I thank you for those comments, Alan. With that, I'm going to close this workshop and we will go to workshop number 2. So with that, Martin, go ahead and present the second workshop.
So the second workshop is actually going to be delivered by Ms. Kachi Copeland. Kachi, feel free to take it away.
Good evening, everyone. This is a request by Paige McKee, applicant on behalf of Dixie Farm Property, LLC, owner for a planned development workshop as required by the Unified Development Code regarding a proposed RV, trailer, and boat storage facility, self-storage facility, on approximately 15.91 acres, generally located at the northeast of the intersection of Dixie Farm Road and Main Street. The purpose of the workshop is to discuss and provide feedback regarding a proposal to develop an RV, trailer, and boat storage facility, which is classified through the UDC as self-storage facility. The proposal includes 377 units along Dixie Farm Road, and this is required by our code to have a joint workshop. The current zoning of the property is a mix of M1 and M2, which is our light industrial and our heavy industrial districts. And the surrounding zoning is also M1 and M2, and we have ETJ to the east. The future land use plan has this area classified as the professional services place type. This place type focuses on industrial uses. Shown on the screen is the proposed site plan and rendering provided by the applicant. As previously stated, the number of storage units proposed is 377, with 246 back-in units and 131 angled units. This slide shows the site plan from a bird's eye view. The self-storage land use requires a conditional use permit in both M1 and M2 zoning. In 2022, additional regulations were added to the UDC regarding the mini warehouse / self-storage land use. Condition A notes that the use is prohibited along any roadway with a corridor overlay district designation with the exception of Main Street. This property is located along Dixie Farm Road, which is part of the corridor overlay district. The applicant is requesting the land use be allowed along this thoroughfare. Additionally, Condition C of the 2022 regulation requires climate-controlled units with the exception to any accessory outdoor storage area for vehicles. The applicant is proposing that the primary use be storage of boats, RVs, trailers, and other large vehicles, and is requesting that the units not all be climate-controlled, to allow enclosed, covered, open storage for those accessory vehicles. On this screen and on the following slides, note the subject of the requested deviation, what the UDC requirement is, what the applicant is requesting, and a discussion point related to the item. This slide proposes the deviations in parking along with lot and setback standards within the Corridor Overlay District. This slide breaks down the requirements and discussion points from the building articulation standards and building material standards within the Corridor Overlay District. In the applicant's packet, the proposed deviation was not specified, but listed and highlighted with question marks. Staff is unclear if compliance will be met or if a proposed deviation will be more specific when and if a formal application is made. We encourage the City Council and Planning and Zoning Commission to ask the applicant these questions regarding the requirements per the Corridor Overlay District. This slide breaks down the landscaping requirements in the Corridor Overlay District, the applicant's deviation, and a staff discussion point. For additional reference, a Google image of an evergreen tree and a crepe myrtle are included at the lower right-hand corner. And finally, this slide breaks down the screening elements required within the Corridor Overlay District, the applicant's deviation, and a staff discussion point. For reference, a Google image of a Trex fencing is provided in the lower right-hand corner. That concludes staff presentation. Thank you.
All right, I see the applicants here. Do you have a presentation? All right, good deal. Good to see you tonight. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
We first want to thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Jay McKee. This is my wife, Paige McKee. We live at 3912 Livingston Lake Court in Pearland. And we've actually raised our children here. I grew up in Alvin. She grew up here in Pearland. And so when we started looking at any kind of development, no other place we'd rather do it than our own hometown. So she's been through a little bit about what was going on here. I guess I'm just going to kind of start to give you an idea of where we are and where we propose to build this. We are approximately, for those of you that know Thai Metal Corp, which is right on the corner of 35 and Dixie Farm. So we are just to the east and then just to the west of Hill Landfill. We've actually spoken with our neighbors, and forgive us, we're not a big conglomerate polished. I mean, this is our first time doing this stuff, so we're just entrepreneurs and developers, and I'm a commercial insurance agent by day. So, but anyway, we have spoken to our neighbors. Trey Hill has actually become a really good friend of mine, and actually one of my biggest cheerleaders. So hats off to Trey. He's ecstatic about it. He actually said, "Dadgummit, Jay, why didn't you come and bring me in on this deal? I want in on." So we've also spoken with our neighbor to the I guess south of us, Jeff Canos. I pronounced it all wrong the first time I met him, and that is not Proline. Anyway, great guy. He's excited about the project. And so he's for us. Thai Metal Corp, as a matter of fact, they wanted to actually buy a little bit more of our land. So we made a deal with them. They're fantastic and great to work with as well. And they're actually going to build our gate for us. So we're really excited about that. To get into the kind of what we're asking for, the biggest thing probably is, when we looked at, and before I go any further, I want to thank city staff. Y'all have been absolutely fantastic with us. Thank you so very much, each and every one of you. It has been fantastic to work with you. And I'm not asking for brownie points. That was a heartfelt thank you. But one of the things in the beginning was we noticed that storage, mini storage, anything storage just kind of got thrown in one big bucket. Like, for instance, the 50% climate control. So our intent is not to build a mini storage where we have folks that are storing maybe the interim time between their moving or grandma's knickknacks or things of that nature that they end up forgetting about. These are high value assets. Our intent is to be a premier facility, not a something you might see on Bailey Road. Our intent is to be a very, very high end, if you will, facility. It is a little unique in the center. If you look there, the spaces that are covered are actually angled. And I own a very large rig, and I know how hard it is to back it. And so if you put them at about a 60-degree angle, it's really easy to get in and out. That also keeps people from hitting our property, and we don't have to replace that. And then the enclosed storage areas are on the perimeter, and they're built that way for a reason. Really, really wide driveways. Every driveway is a minimum of 60 feet. So when you're backing a large rig, you have plenty of room to turn. As a matter of fact, the largest, which are right along the border, Dixie Farm there, it's a minimum of about 72 feet, and then it widens out a little bit there. So with that, with what we intend to store, a climate control doesn't really make much sense. So what we're asking for is to just, where am I at? Good, but this doesn't say that.
Not professionals, sorry.
You're doing fine.
So, yeah, what we would request the wording to say, you shall be climate controlled with the exception of enclosed, covered, and open storage of property such as boats, RVs, trailers, and other such large vehicles items. So we're not asking council to make a widespread, this is very specific, to say that this is the need, this is the use, and nothing else changes outside of that. So one of the next topic is our overlay district. So we understand we're in the overlay district. Our intent is to be first of all, a good neighbor, but an asset to the community. Our landscaping choice is actually of the city. So the crepe myrtles, things of that nature. When you're driving down Dixie Farm Road, we want it where you can't even really tell the difference where it was city property and our property. Yeah, do we have a slide that shows the, there you go. That's a good one. So as you can see there, we chose crepe myrtles. We're not opposed to evergreens, but just as you come 35, if you look at the esplanade in the middle of Dixie Farm Road, it's the same landscaping. And then the Trex wall. Trex is a very durable material. It's a composite. It's about a 50-year warranty against fading, chipping, cracking, sagging, things of that nature. It is an investment on our part, but the most important thing is it's aesthetically pleasing. And it will be screened to 100% opacity, so you will not be able to see through this wall. We also have the rear of the building, which will be a neutral tone. It's kind of a grayish beigeish color, but a very neutral tone. It blends well with the landscaping and also with the fence line. So in the overlay district, as it's written now for this section, we would be, the build would be 150 feet set back from the roadway easement. As we are currently drawn at its closest, which is to the west, we are approximately 85 feet from that roadway easement. To the east, we are approximately 140 feet from that roadway easement. So there is a caveat in there that says 150 feet setback unless such area is screened to 100% opacity. So it will be screened to 100% opacity, but we're not all the way at 150 feet. We're pretty stinking close. We do have a pipeline that runs, I believe that is Enterprise, that runs directly. If you look to the drawing on the right there, you can see where there's roadway easement, and there's that little triangle of land there that's actually owned by the city. And then there is the pipeline, which is owned by Enterprise. Well, it's their pipeline, our property. And then the build line, which is set back according to how far we have to be off of that pipeline. The other point, so the and by the way, while I'm here, I will say that we have we're in the process of the replat. At one point, these were 3 pieces of land, and there was a roadway easement that ran through there. We've been through that with staff, and that's ready. We have our neighbor who signed off on the apparatus. We've signed off on the apparatus. We're just waiting for them to send it back to us to say, yeah, it looks good, so we can get everybody to sign off on it. Other than that, we are, as stated before, it is our intent to be a higher class facility. And something else I wanted to say on this is that part of the reason why it is this type, completely controlled spaces, I know that was addressed as far as the parking spaces, those will be inside there. We only want the people that have access to have access to this for the safety, protection of those that are storing there, but also for the community and for the businesses in the surrounding area.
Just real quick, public speaking is not my thing, but one of the things that we noticed in talking, so we're in Town Lake Estates. We've been there for 12, almost 13 years now. And I've been in Pearland since 91. I'm not going to say how old I was when I got here, but one of the things is that when we talk to our neighbors and people that we, our friends that have been here for a long time, we're surrounded by HOAs. We actually have an HOA going in, another one across the street from us off 35. And as we all know that live in one, we don't have the ability to store. I mean, we bring our big rig in to, just to unpack, and we get a letter from the HOA. We can't store them in our home, by our homes or, in our area. And so everyone is saying, yes, please build this, because right now we have to go 20, 30 minutes away. Ours currently sits about 20 minutes away. And they like the fact that it would be convenient for them to be able to go around the corner and get their property and check on their property and know that it's being, taken care of. So that's, the other reason that we're looking at that. We have done a lot of legwork in speaking with all of our neighbors and friends.
All right. Is that complete presentation? Because we'll turn it over to planning and zoning first. But before we do, Martin, I thought a year and a half ago-ish, maybe 2 years ago now, we approved Trex to be used as an alternative fence material in the corridor overlay zone. And the reason I say that is River Mist right here was allowed to do it, and we went through and modified the UDC to allow it.
That was a modification for residential fences. It was not a modification for commercial fences.
Okay. All right. With that, we'll turn it over to planning and zoning for comments, questions.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Go first.
Thank you. I think the first thing I'll say, which is my normal, we just adopted a comprehensive plan. It has a use. Let's give the comprehensive plan some time to play out. Obviously, this isn't the prettiest part of Dixie Farm. There's already some light industrial. There's some older stuff there. I do believe the plan is eventually Dixie Farm will be extended through across the tracks and down to connect with the other neighborhoods that are being built, and so it'll become a more traveled street. And so we can look at the short term or we can look at the long term. I would say looking at the definition of planned development, is RV storage really a high quality development for the community that would result in a use with a better use over conventional zoning? I can't really say that. I would say that if they were to come back, I think it's about aesthetic, look and feel, right? So it's just not a big blank wall. There articulation, material variation possibly. I'll say the islands right in front of their building have lots of trees. There's a couple of crepe myrtles at the corner, but there's lots of mature trees all up and down Dixie Farm. So I think staff's request for meeting those trees is on point. But I would say, yeah, I mean, it's for the most part a conventional RV storage park, and I don't think that's what PDs are for. So give us something that we can say, wow, you made an RV park look like that, you know, that maybe is worth a PD, and then we can look at it. Thank you.
I think this particular parcel and stuff, you're right there by the dump. I can't imagine us putting anything in there that's that, you know, where you're going to have a lot of people there all the time. That particular dump don't smell as bad as some of the others, but it does have a smell from time to time. And I think that this would be a good spot for an RV park, or not an RV, but this type of use.
Right.
And you know, I understand what Commissioner McDonald said, but about given time to the comprehensive plan to work out. We did a big study. We spent a lot of time on it, but I just can't imagine, even in the future and stuff, that dump's going to be there, or even the rendering or the remnants of the dump's going to be there. Right now, we've got area over there that's not guarded whatsoever, and you've got a bunch of RVs up and down Dixie Farm Road where they've got them just parked out there just in the field out there. So I think this right here would be a step up from it. So I would be behind it.
I think because the property's right by the dump, I don't know what other business entity. I'd have no idea if there's been any research or interest into that property by other industrial users or whatever it was zoned for. So I wouldn't have issue with it.
First of all, I want to thank you for your ability to come in and speak with us and bring us your vision for that area. Mr. Canals and I are close friends, and if he told you he was for it, because he's a pretty tough nut.
He's a fantastic guy. I'm proud to call him my friend.
So I will concur with Commissioner Eisenberg that just between the landfill and the business, just I guess that would be south of you, southwest, where the old Generac was. Mm-hmm. If you were going to have fencing like they have, where you don't cover up your trash and everything else, your storage, I would not be for that. But with the observation that I see with this tangible look, I would be for it. They're between the dump and your facility, like Eisenberg said, and like Commissioner Hendricks said, there's RV storage already there. Whether it's permitted or not, I do not know, but there's RVs being parked out in the open. And every time I go that way, I say, how in the heck is this happening? So I would concur with Commissioner Eisenberg, and I would be for it.
I agree with everyone else. I don't know what all you could do with that property being so close to where it's located. And I do think that's a good use of the property, and I thought it was a great presentation.
One thing I will say that I chased a lot of dirt for a long time. I didn't wake up yesterday and decide to do this. This is actually a promise I made to my late father. And I chased a lot of dirt for a long, long time. And just, I don't know how many times I drove by there and never even realized it. And just one day I saw a sign that was laying on the ground, and I said, is that a for sale sign? Called my realtor, and we found it and realized it was everything I needed it to be. I needed it to be M2, you know, M1, M2. I knew what it needed to be. And in a way, this has been a God thing. So thank you.
All right. I guess I would want to make sure that it is RV storage and no inhabitants. And, you know, I don't want this thing to become a.
That was the biggest reason why we don't want anybody squatting, living, otherwise.
They get a 110 plug.
Yeah, they get one plug to, you know, for a
Battery.
trickle charge,
And
just
that's it.
and a light bulb.
And that's the other reason we did not want AC. We do not want people living in these.
Well, as long as that's written in the agreement, I'm okay with that part of it. I had down here that the neighbor, you know, your neighbor isn't it landfill. I did write dump, but I'll make it landfill. The corridor overlay district, realizing that sometimes, and I've watched council before, and I don't know how the discussion went, and I'm hoping y'all can educate. But in 2022, when y'all relooked at this, did we think about Dixie Farm all the way down, or do we think about, you know, the main parts that we think about Dixie Farm with the Walmart area and the drive, the pretty drive by Oak Brook, et cetera, et cetera? So you know, that's where I'd agree that Dixie Farm should be a corridor overlay district. Maybe not so much right with this M1 area, M1, M2 area. So I'd be interested to hear if somebody remembers the history there. But otherwise, I'd be for it. And I can't go against Commissioner Chris Kringle, so that's it for us.
All right, we'll open up to council, but I will say a couple of things. I know Jay and Paige personally live in the same neighborhood. Quick question, how long have you owned this piece of property?
We bought it in August of 2022.
Okay, so unlike a lot of others who are coming in front of us, they're invested. They're actually a landowner. They don't have it under contract, speculating about what they're doing. They've actually owned this piece of property for a couple of years. I want to echo some of what's been said, and that is this is a tough piece of property to develop. You've got, on the frontage, you've got X number of feet of a pipeline corridor that you can't get on top of, and then so you got to set back. So most other commercial type businesses would want to be closer up. So that's going to take it. I mean, could you find an industrial user to come in and do the one? Maybe. I think you're going to have some environmental issues with the landfill next door, any potential leaching that has happened. This is certainly a use that it's going to have people in and out with their units, but it's not going to be additional truck traffic and that type of traffic, you know, each and every day. So when it was first proposed to me, I had a conversation with Paige, and I think it's an appropriate use for this piece parcel. And the reason to do the plan developments give both the city and the developer flexibility in writing its own zoning. And that's what we're doing here, to allow it, and also to maybe get some things in it that the city would want to see from a landscaping and some facade and those types of things, but at the same time allow a use that we might not otherwise, you know, allow, and to address the 50% climate controlled. So we can write that in as a variation to the need for it. So I think it was a creative use or a creative way to go about doing it. I'll open it up for council questions, comments. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yep, thank you, Mayor. No, I think the use is spot on. It's right next to the dump. Great use of the product. Get some assessed value on the ground. In terms of the corridor overlay and setbacks, I'm fine with it as proposed. I mean, I drive up and down that road every day, and you'd be putting. We'd be holding this property to an extremely higher standard that none of the neighbors in that area are going to meet. That dump's going to be there for a while. They've got trucks sitting right there on Dixie Farm. They got roll-offs that are dumped right there, and so I think it's ridiculous to hold the high standard that we would down at, say, Dixie Farm and 518. And so I'm glad staff got to I'm glad we're using the PD in this way. If you go to slide, I guess 29 and 30, do we need to give direction or clarify through some of these items, and when do we want to do that?
So as the applicants didn't exactly provide any flavor for where they wanted to take this portion, that's why we noted it out as something we would enjoy discussion on. Normally, corridor overlay district would require that articulation and the minimum transparency. I will note for a commercial development, so at regular retail, it's a 25% transparency minimum requirement. As this is M1 and M2, it gets a 10% reduction down to 15%. So, it is trying to activate that look and feel that is desired. But, we recognize that it's, personal property that people are storing, and that it may be ideal for those windows to be significantly higher up, so that way you're not getting views into, seeing how nice that motor coach is.
I would say I'm in favor of being as lax as possible, knowing that staff will take that and still try to get them as far as you can. But I mean, well, said, we're next to a dump,
and noted we could have an industrial developer come in there, and unfortunately, state law, they don't have to abide by facade requirements, even in a corridor overlay. Facade requirements were stricken several sessions ago. We know that. So I would be looking to get this at least as good a look as we can get, given the area and given an M1, M2 area. So and that's part of the facade that we can go back and forth on with the planned development. But just somebody come in there and put a metal building tomorrow.
Mayor.
You got it?
No, go ahead.
Next up. No, go ahead.
Can you go to slide 28?
Right there.
So it says the use is prohibited along any roadway except Main Street.
Correct. So in late 21, early 22, while the Planning and Zoning Commission and Council were discussing developing regulations for certain uses, the idea was that if you're going to have a mini warehouse self-storage, that you wanted it to be on 35. And we used the corridor overlay districts as, the designated roadways to say, don't have this type of use on Bailey, on Cullen, on, those other roadways. But that if you were going to put it somewhere, the exception was 35.
Okay, we're looking at Old Town and fixing up a lot of that area. Is there a way to revisit this, or is this written in stone?
So this one, this discussion is site specific, but more than welcome to have a second round of revisions through the UDC amendment process
All right.
to
Thank you.
take a second look.
As far as for y'all, I think it's a good place for it, and thank you. Thank you for coming forward with that.
Chavarria.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I'm in favor, but I would like for y'all to work with staff to look at some of the variations. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to say 100% support on this. A couple of things maybe to highlight, to think about. The climate-controlled use shall be climate-controlled with the exception of any accessory. I would be okay if you guys had some climate-controlled in there. When I say that, if you look at the numbers of the way it leases and what it costs to build it, I think it'll make a lot of sense for you and help you get the numbers right on the project. So I would even be laxed on if you guys wanted to do some climate controlled. A couple of other things to highlight is if you can go back to the site plan, there's some holes in the site plan. I know that the pipeline goes through they're not going to let you put a building on top of their pipeline. If you go to the site plan,
The black and white.
25. You have a building sitting on the pipeline, they're not going to allow that. You'll need a pave over agreement with the pipeline. They'll probably make you put in some vents and stuff like that. Just the only reason I'm highlighting that is because all those little things build, and then I don't know what triggers for without looking and digging into the sizes of a sprinkler system or stuff like that, or monitored fire alarm and those requirements. But those are things just to really check on as you're doing it, and that's 100% in support of this.
Can I address something there?
Yeah.
With it? So if you notice the egress there coming in, that's actually a shared drive with Thai Metal Corp. Now I've got to go back with my architect because he actually didn't listen, so he's going to have to fix that a little bit. But currently, that driveway is gravel. Thai Metal Corp in agreement with us, that will be a concrete driveway. I had conversations with Enterprise. They are good with it. The latest development you can see in the top left corner, Mike Alvarez, when he put his in, and I think he finished up probably the early part of this year, he has a concrete drive that goes over. So we've already been in contact with Enterprise in what they're going to expect from us. They understand that the size of the vehicles, it's not 18-wheelers and things of that nature, so they're comfortable with it.
Just one question. In the corner, I guess the black fencing at the end of the two buildings, is that like a dump station?
No, that is a wellhead that is owned by Denbury Exxon. We are currently in negotiations with Denbury Exxon to plug that.
Okay. Will you guys have a dump station?
No. We do not have sewer. So this is all septic out here.
Okay. Because I know I've done some traveling too, and
it's an amenity that
it is. It's
many
nice.
Exactly. It's an amenity that would absolutely elevate our facility. However, with everything in that area being still on septic, as a matter of fact, our neighbor, we had to come and move their lines off of our property. So there's water there, but we don't have waste, and we've had discussion about what it would take to do it. Unfortunately, it ends right about where Alvarez is. So, and as far as the climate control, there are facilities that have climate control. They built them for that. They built them for that purpose. They also mix in their small mini storage. There is like I said, I didn't wake up yesterday and start doing this. I've been researching this since probably 2012. The higher, so y'all have probably seen the shows, Storage Wars or an auction show where they would go to these places. Very, very, very high likelihood that you're going to have auction companies here and people in these things to auction that stuff off in those types of storage facilities. In boat RV or high, people aren't walking away from $150,000 boat or a $500,000 motor coach. They're not walking away from it. And it doesn't benefit us if they walk away from it, because all we can recover is whatever it is that we're out rent. So it's, you know, the someone else's problem, the state's problem or the local government's problem. So that is not our intent. Our intent is to be very matter of fact that this is what we do and this is all we do.
Yeah, my only comment on that was just to say that if that's what you wanted to do, I would be in support of it.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for your presentation. I think the idea is right. Being familiar with corridor overlay districts, they're kind of a pain to say the least. But I think staff has quite a few question marks in this, and I think you need to work with them. As it stands right now, I'd probably be a no. But if y'all worked with staff and came across with some of their questions that they have, some of their comments they have, and work with them, I could get there. That's what I've got.
Patel?
Thank you, Mayor. I know we're running out of time. I just want to wish you guys well. I think it's the right project. I agree with Mayor Koza, or Councilmember Koza. I think you guys just work with City Council, but I think the project's in the right site. So best of luck.
Yeah, I think the main thing on some of these questions that staff had, let's just work. And I get it. You don't want to go too far deep into that until you had this and you had a path forward. I think from planning and zoning and council, there's a path forward here. So let's, you know, dig in and get some of those things asked and answered and get it back. And I wish you well and I wish you luck and look forward to this coming back, having a public hearing and moving forward. So any other comments from planning and zoning? Wrap up, staff? Anything? All right. With that, we will conclude these workshops at 6:21. With that, I know you guys want to go grab something to eat real quick.